The ABC sat before Senate estimates this week where Managing Director David Anderson and Editorial Director Gavin Fang faced some tough questions. Now, one of the main criticisms against the ABC would surprise no one. Fang revealed thousands of complaints had been lodged against the ABC for its coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. He said about 58% of those 3,000 plus complaints have been largely about impartiality and bias. Those complaints have alleged that we have been pro-Israel or anti-Palestinian, and about 41 to 42% have been running the other way. This is a really complex story, a very fast-moving story, so we are always trying to meet our editorial policies and our standing. And Green Senator Mehreen Faruqi had a few fiery moments with David Anderson, telling him that he was hiding away from speaking about the legal case with sacked pro-Palestinian radio presenter Antoinette Lattouf.
Mr. Anderson, do you think that you will be remembered as the ABC MD who bowed to external pressure and let racism flourish at the ABC?
No, Senator, I don't.
People after people, Stan Grant, Sami Shah, Noor Heather, Antoinette Lattouf now. So obviously you're not tackling the problem.
It was always going to be a bruising Senate estimates, but very rarely does a national broadcaster get at odds with forces on the left. Normally you have people like Sarah Hanson-Young defending David Anderson, but this week we saw just how divided the ABC newsroom has become. Caleb, it's so fascinating for me to see the left turn on the ABC when traditionally it is conservative voices which have a gripe, and I think quite understandably a lot of conservative voices, particularly people in support of Israel, do still have a gripe. And the ABC is getting tugged in two completely diametrically opposed ways.
Well, the fact that by their own admission, the majority of complaints they've had about their Israel-Palestine coverage have said that they are pro-Israel probably tells you something about where the minds of the ABC audience are at, and the newsroom as well, because we know that journalists at the ABC internally have raised concerns that the ABC has been too pro-Israel. They were upset that they couldn't use language like genocide when referring to the war that Israel has waged against Gaza in response to what happened on October the 7th. You had the news director, Justin Stevens, had to get up and do an all-in meeting with the staff to basically allay their fears, where the staff told him that they could no longer deal with people in the Palestinian community because they're upset with the way the ABC's covered the story. I mean, this might be one of the first times in my life where I have to defend the ABC and say, for heaven's sake, if you've watched the ABC and you think they are pro-Israel, then you've got a screw loose. I mean, you look at the episode of Q&A they ran, they had no live audience. This is their, Israel and Palestine discussion. They had no live audience, not because they were worried about what the pro-Israeli people would do, I'm sure. They were worried about what the pro-Palestinian people would do. They only had one actual Jewish person on that panel of 5. On and on it goes. And they seriously believe that the ABC is pro-Israel? It's just maddening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Darren, I think David Anderson, by the whole, has done a pretty good job handling this, because he is getting this groundswell of opposition in his newsroom, at his company, against their coverage, and he's standing firm in a way that I think he needs to. But what do you make of it? I mean, clearly what it has highlighted is they have a problem with hiring in groups. The groupthink issue at the ABC is out of control. The fact that every single person seems to have such strong anti-Israel sentiment in regards to what's happening in Gaza, that's now a problem of their own making. It's something that they've got to fix. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the volume of complaints and the pressure that their ratings are under, both on radio and television, just shows that there is an issue there. And as Caleb said as well, like, there's some big questions around some of their coverage. Why is there not more scrutiny of the way that Palestinians are used by Hamas as human shields? Why are certain groups just given, essentially oxygen on television to say whatever they want without being scrutinised about their affiliations and some of the things that they're saying? I mean, the importance of sort of traditional journalistic integrity, facts-based reporting in this kind of fragmented, intensely competitive media landscape is just more important than ever before, and this kind of drift towards opinions that are privileged over traditional kind of news gathering methods. It is a real concern, and the ABC should be really about facts-based reporting, and clearly the viewers themselves see some major issues with their reporting of that conflict and other big issues as well, and that's very, very fair. I think many viewers and Australian taxpayers would say.
Yeah, I think what they did well is picking up from your point, Caleb, as well. The definitions that they've had to draw lines in the sand under. You mentioned genocide. There was also the word apartheid is something that the reporters were wanting to slip into packages, and they actually had to tell people, well, no, you're going to have to get a package vetted if it mentions the word. But that to me seems like a positive step. I know a lot of the journalists are upset about being edited, but you can't have these junior cadets essentially dictating what terms we use in these global conflicts without it getting checked, surely.
Well, if you don't want to be edited, perhaps don't editorialise, which is what they were doing. You know, they want to use language, as you say, apartheid, genocide, etc. They are value-adding to the story what they believe to be the case. Well, you know, as a reporter, it's not your job to value-add what you believe. You check out your beliefs at the door and you simply tell the story of what's going on. The same as there were staff at the ABC, like there were at the Nine newspapers, who signed that open letter saying that, you know, we should treat information that comes from the Israeli government with the same gusto that we do information that comes from the Palestinian, from Hamas. So you're putting the Israeli government and Hamas, a terrorist organisation, on the same level. I think they make it pretty clear where they stand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we had the New York Times apologise for that front page where they used the Hamas information to wildly inflate the hospital bombing. That was a disaster in itself.